on the Soviet home front during World War II. Valentine's pill is a go.
During World War II, few countries experienced hunger more acutely than the Soviet Union.
Oh.
But even though food was scarce, the people on the home front made do as best they could by making dishes like this kasha.
Shut up, Chatty. You think I didn't know the BGM was on? I was just trying to torture you a little bit to test your loyalty. Sorry.
Or porridge made with millet and pumpkin.
Oh, wait. I forgot to turn back on the alerts, too. Whoops. Oh, man. Tenfist, thank you for the 17 months. I appreciate it. I'm turning them back on to the chagrin of a couple people.
So thank you to Bombas for sponsoring this video as we try to survive on the Soviet home
Sponsored to
front.
talk about
This
the
time
Soviet
on Tasting
Union?
History.
Lamelda, you're making big moves in the background. You, Max and Lucy together? Hell yeah. What the fuck are you talking about?
Last month I kicked off
A woman watches a man's video and you phrase it as if they're together? This is
series
crazy.
of home front cooking during World War II with the United States, where the home front and the war front were very much separate. But today we're going to be talking about the Soviet Union,
Okay, let's
where
talk about
the
it.
war front and the home front were very often the same place. Now, shortly before the war in Europe began, Germany and the Soviet Union had
Don't laugh at
signed
that,
the
Lucy.
Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact, agreeing that neither
lips are
country would
sealed.
attack the other while they carved up the smaller countries between them. But then, on June 22nd, 1941, Germany
I watched a video on how it's basically impossible for, like, America to get invaded for a bunch of reasons, but terrain being a huge one, just like at number one, because the way, like, America is placed, it would just be so fucking hard to invade it. Yeah, we have two huge oceans. There is an ocean there, yeah, on both sides. No one wants y'all's deserts. What? He talks about the deserts immediately, bro. First, you have to figure something out about the ocean. I saw that same video. Oh my god, Chatty, we are one.
and other Axis
Turns out,
powers
oceans can protect
invaded the
you. No
Soviet
way.
Union along in
Dude, it's almost like when your land is connected exactly to other people's land, there's like a risk or something. No way.
1,800-mile front. And as it was a surprise attack, the Soviet Red Army was rather unprepared and took heavy losses, especially in that very first month.
Okay.
And so too did the Soviet people. Even if they were not right in the direct line of German panzers, they felt the effects of the invasion right away, most keenly in their stomachs.
I too get hungry.
Within a month, Soviet citizens received their first ration cards, and from the start, rations were pretty meager. And we'll talk
The
about
music
just
in the
how
background
meager they
reminds me
were,
of Papers,
but
Please.
before we do that, I wanted to find a recipe that kind of typifies what somebody might
Glory
be
to our
eating at the
Statska.
time. The problem is that unlike most of the other countries I'm going to cover in this series, there were very, very few cookbooks being published in and around Russia at the time.
I wonder why.
And that was kind of on purpose.
I wonder
See,
why.
during the previous
Why?
decades, there
Chatty,
had been a push
anyone-
to
any
liberate
theories?
women from what they called kitchen slavery. That is, they shouldn't have to spend all day cooking, so they could work outside of the home. There was also an early idea of Bolshevism that relied on kind of an ascetic
That's so fucking funny. In a fucked up way, let me explain. This is funny in the sense that, yeah, we shouldn't have to spend all day cooking at the home. That does suck. And then the person's like, yeah, you should be outside working in the fields for 24 hours instead. Like, why the fuck are you stuck in the kitchen, dumbass?
lifestyle, and this led food to change and become more simplified, and this led to few recipes being written down. Well, in the late 1930s, there was a backlash against this ideal, and so to revive and codify the cuisine of the different Soviet republics, the Ministry of the Food Industry, headed by Anastas Mikoyan, released an iconic cookbook.
Now, I'm not gonna lie. Why does everyone in this time period look evil? Like, look at this guy's face. He genuinely looks like he wants to kill you, just in gaze alone.
In 1939, called Kniga o Vkusnai i Zdarovai Pisha, or the Book of Tasty
do you
and
really
Healthy
believe
Food.
it? Do you really believe
naturally,
it?
I looked to that cookbook to find recipes from the period, but I found that many of
Chatty,
the
maybe
recipes
I'll find
use
some
ingredients that wouldn't have
recipes
been
here.
available to like 90% of the population. They definitely read more aspirational than actually achievable. But I did find one recipe for something called kasha, which
The real reason is they just didn't have a lot to smile about.
is a sort of porridge.
Nobody
This
had
version
shit
of it
to smile
uses
about in
millet, which became
1940s.
the staple grain during World War II, and it uses an ingredient that people would have been able to grow at home, and that is pumpkin. Place peeled and finely chopped pumpkin in hot milk and
ew.
cook for 10 to 15 minutes. Then add washed millet. Add salt and stirring, continue cooking for another 15
What is
to
this?
20
Is this like
minutes
pumpkin
until
soup?
thickened. Place the cooked porridge in a water bath or in the
Okay,
oven for
pumpkin
25
porridge.
to 30 minutes. Now,
Thank
versions
you,
of this dish
Laguera,
is still
for the
made
13
today
months.
in most of Eastern Europe, and with autumn right around the corner, it's the perfect dish for a crisp autumnal morning, something to warm your belly.
Pasha literally
and if you're
translates to
looking to
porridge.
warm your feet,
Why does Russian have so many cool words for regular shit? Like, porridge sounds boring and, like, posh as hell in English, but, like, kasha, that sounds like some shit that you would, like, use to fire a huge missile.
might I suggest a pair of socks
And I
from today's
filled the
sponsor,
cannon with
Bombas.
kasha.
So if you haven't heard of Bombas, they are an amazing sock
Why would
company.
you do
and they don't
that?
just sell socks, they also give them away. For every item that they sell, they donate one item, and to this day, they have donated over 100 million items to those.
Chatty, I'm sorry, I didn't parry. I'm parrying.
Tasha, for which you will need 1 cup or 220 grams of millet, 3 cups or 710 milliliters
Okay.
of whole milk, of
I don't know what
pumpkin,
millet is,
and
I
it
just
being
realized.
August, it turns out pumpkins
Is it
are kind
grain?
of hard to find at this time of year, so I am using a Japanese pumpkin, which
Dissociating watching ads
absolutely
like a real
works,
American.
and it will provide more than enough pumpkin because this recipe actually only calls for 500 grams. 1
How much is
teaspoon of
500
sugar
grams?
and a
Can you
half
show us?
teaspoon of salt. So first peel your pumpkin and then chop it into small pieces,
Right.
a little less than 1 inch cubed. And again, you're looking for only 500 grams of the pumpkin after peeling and chopping. Then put the pumpkin in a pot and pour the milk over it, and then
that's
place the pot
more
over
than
a
I
medium
thought,
heat
I
and bring it
guess.
to a low simmer. Set the lid on and let it simmer for about 10 minutes. And as it simmers,
How many
you
does
can
this
wash
feed?
your millet. And make sure to really
How
rinse
many
the
does
millet
this
until
feed?
the water runs clear. It can take a little time, but then you can add it to the pot along with the
15?
salt and
Shut
the
up.
sugar. And what's
The whole
interesting
village,
about
shut
this
up.
recipe is that it doesn't actually say to put the sugar in there, but sugar is in the ingredient list, so I'm assuming that it goes in around now, but I could be wrong. It's not maybe the best written recipe. My recipes, on the other hand, are very well written.
Right.
Those in the Tasting
Shill
History
posting.
Cookbook and
I
the ones
admire
that
it.
I'm working on for the next Tasting History Cookbook. My Patreon patrons are already
Guys, did you know that
testing
Gamer
the
Subs has a
recipes,
really
so
simple
thank you to
recipe?
them.
You put the
Now, once you've
powder
added
in the
millet,
water.
salt, and sugar, stir everything together and let it return to a low simmer, and then put the lid on and let it
Lucy.
simmer for another 15 to 20 minutes as it starts to thicken up and the
Oh.
millet softens. Every few
This
minutes,
looks
give it a
foul to
stir
me.
if for no other reason to
Am I
incorporate
insane?
any milk that's
Press
starting
1 if
to
this
form
looks
a
good.
skin
Press
on
2 if
top,
it looks
but you want
foul.
to be gentle because you don't want to break up the pumpkin. Now, while it thickens, set your oven rack to the very bottom rung and preheat the oven to 275
Imelda,
Fahrenheit,
even you are
135
betraying it?
Celsius. And then when the millet has softened,
Whoa,
set the
whoa.
pot with the lid on in the oven and let it bake
It's still
for 25
cooking. It's not supposed to
minutes.
look good
now,
yet.
with the milk and
I think that's bullshit. 90% of the time, you can tell if food is going to be a banger or not before it's done cooking.
the sugar especially, this is definitely a dish that would have been made
Matron, welcome.
during the very best of times during World War II and during rationing. But I wanted to take a closer look at some of the not best of times.
Whatever could he talk about
The
next?
Axis invasion of the Soviet
over.
Union, known as Operation
actually
Barbarossa,
fucking over.
named after
Hydration.
a Holy Roman Emperor and Crusader from the 12th century, was the country's
It's
official
over.
introduction to World War II, known in the Soviet Union as
Cooked.
the Great Patriotic War. But they actually entered the war somewhat battered already, both
What?
militarily, having sustained heavy casualties.
Wait. Is this not literally the most Valentine's fucking male-coded Valentine's video watching of all time? We're learning about a world war together.
In the 1939 Winter War with Finland, and in a domestic sense. Between 1936 and 1938, Stalin led a terror
I was cooking with
campaign
this playlist.
known as the Great Purge. And on top of that, the late 1930s saw several years of poor harvests, so when
I'm
within
sorry,
just a
but
few
the
months
idea of like having the leader of your country like stapled to your tank is so fucking funny to me. It's just like, look at him! Look! Okay,
the
buddy.
invasion, Germany came to control half of the Soviets' acreage used to grow grain. The Soviet government had to act lest their entire population would starve. And the starvation of the Soviet population was actually part of Germany's plan. See, in the
Was it also part of their plan to invade in the winter? That goes really well, usually, when it happens.
months before the invasion, the German High Command realized that should they wish to press the war into Russia, the vast distances and the poor transportation in Soviet-controlled lands would eventually leave the German military, the Wehrmacht, stranded without
That's how
food.
you say that?
Thus, it was determined that 1. The war can only be continued if the entire Wehrmacht is fed from Russia in the 3rd year of the war, and 2. If we take what we need out of the country, there can be no doubt that tens of millions of people will die of starvation.
But that, oh, but that sounds mean. Why would you do that? That's so mean. That's so mean. Why would you do that? It's mean.
This was what would become known as der Hungerplan, or the Hunger Plan, and it was overseen by Herbert.
Can't be serious. Der Hungerplan. When your evil, villainous plot literally sounds like it was pulled from a fucking cartoon, you can't be serious. You can't be serious. Bintaron, welcome, hi.
Baca, who worked for the Reich Ministry of Food and Agriculture. And the plan called for all food that was made from Soviet lands to either be fed to the Wehrmacht or shipped all the way west to feed the German home front. And the plan partly worked. Many millions did die of starvation.
I'm not locked in enough.
But the food was not getting to the Wehrmacht or the German home front.
I'm sorry, I was locked on Hungerplan.
After the invasion, Stalin decreed that all valuable property, including non-ferrous metals, grain, and fuel, which cannot be withdrawn, must without fail be destroyed. So as the Germans moved toward Moscow, they found pretty much nothing. It was all burnt up crops and destroyed farm implements.
That's so mean.
This was known as the scorched earth policy, which was the same policy that the Russians had employed on
It's
Napoleon
my first day on Earth.
He
this is so mean.
Russia 130 years earlier. Worked on him, and it would work on the Germans as well. It is an effective tactic, but
so wait, what does this have to do with pumpkin
leaves
soup?
A lot of people starving. So a month after the invasion started, the Soviet citizens received their ration cards. Now, the U.S. had rationing, but it was set up very differently than in the Soviet Union. In the U.S., everybody got the same amount of food. You would get the same as
It is now hard to believe there was ever a time in the U.S. that there was a ration card.
The teacher down the street and as the President of the United States. In theory, he did follow rationing. But that's because while food was scarce, there wasn't a huge sense that there was going to be any mass starvation. This was not the case in the Soviet Union. There already was mass starvation, even when it kind of began. So with famine definitely being in the cards, it really came down to...
I'll tell you what, Shaddy. I've never been in a situation, thank God and knock on wood, where I've been, genuinely starving, not by choice. But I have dieted before, recklessly, and I will tell you, when you're hungry, things that you've never considered before in your life start looking so fucking good. Like, for those of you shitting on pumpkin soup right now, just get a little hungry and see how you feel about it in a few days.
Just keeping as many people alive as possible. And so the way that they structured the rationing was more based on need. There were different categories. There were the workers, meaning people who did...
He's giving us the context for why we could theoretically enjoy the pumpkin slop. Imagine, giving a recipe for pumpkin slop, and then you have to be well, you have to understand the time. So it all started when Germany got really mad.
Manual labor and hence needed more calories, and then there were white-collar employees who generally got fewer, then dependents and young children who needed the least. And your specific industry would also affect how many calories you got. Basically, the more important you were to the war effort, the more
How many calories do you get?
Now, with all of this variation and
I need
a lot
the
of variation throughout different periods of the war, it's hard to say,
They invented tumbler diets for Russians.
Exactly how much anyone was getting. But on average, a person would get about a pound, maybe a little bit more, a pound of bread a day, and 3 to 4 pounds of meat per month. But while the central government was setting these rules, they often didn't have the manpower to kind of oversee them and make sure that everybody was getting what they needed. Their focus was the Red Army, who was fighting the Germans.
I was like, a pound of bread a day, not too bad. Then they hit me with the 3 to 4 pounds of meat a month, and I was like, they're dying!
Getting them fed. And so the rationing to the people often fell to more local authorities. And there were a few ways that people would get fed. One was actually by growing victory gardens, things like vegetables, the pumpkin that we're making today, fruit, sometimes a little bit of livestock. Then there were the systems set up by the state. This was usually basics like canned meat, bread, and grain that would be distributed at shops and bakeries.
To this day, I still think canned meat is evil. I think Spam is evil. I think anything in a can, for the most part, is usually evil until proven not evil. But most of the time, you can just assume it's evil.
And the government also had a system of stolovaia, or canteens or cafeterias, which were government-run restaurants where, provided they had the food available, you could get an actual meal. But again, that's only if they had the food available. And there was often the question of, is there actually going to be food there? Because with half of the acreage of farming gone, they had trouble growing enough food for their population. And this is where the United States stepped in. Just as the U.S. had been providing
very rarely
food
does
and
anything
equipment
good
to
come
Great
after
Britain
that
and
sentence.
China, the Soviets would benefit from something called the Lend-Lease Act. Passed in March of 1941, it was determined that supplying those countries fighting the Nazis and the Japanese was essential for the defense of the U.S. even before we were
guys,
at
we're doing
war.
something
In
good!
a November 1941 letter to FDR, Joseph Stalin wrote, "Your decision, Mr. President, to give the Soviet Union an interest-free credit of $1 billion in the form of material supplies and raw materials has been accepted by the Soviet government with heartfelt gratitude as urgent aid to the Soviet Union in its enormous and difficult fight against..."
Don't worry, guys. This relationship will last. And they will continue being friends. Smile.
"The common enemy, bloodthirsty Hitlerism." While much of the assistance was sent in the form of weapons and military supplies, the U.S. also sent 4.5 million tons of food overseas. One of the most iconic foods sent to the Soviet Union was pork, canned in the style that Russians were accustomed to. A very fatty canned pork called tushonka, which was canned by companies like Kroger Grocery and Baking Company, who produced it in Cincinnati, Ohio. This stuff was much loved and much hated. Much loved because during World War II, you were grateful to have anything to eat. Much hated because it lasted forever.
This is making you hungry? You're sick.
As late as the 90s, people were still eating the tushonka from World War II. You can still get it today, but I don't think it's from World War II. Probably some cans still hanging around there. Maybe Steve MRE will eat it. I did get a can. Modern can of it.
He has a little Pokemon next to it. Is that Gore, guys?
I'll do that in like a separate video, if I can get up the
How the hell do you say that?
But even with the U.S. trying to fill the gap between hunger and starvation, it usually wasn't enough because most of the food was going to feed the Red Army.
Few solid American rations left, but it's not enough.
Population. So people had to get creative with their cuisine. First to enter the diet were something called invented foods. And the government in 1943...
Why does invented food sound so sad? It sounds like imaginary food. It sounds like sitting in a circle and then like closing your eyes and like telling each other like, we're eating food. And then like putting your hands in front of your mouths and just like role playing. Started a campaign to get people to try these invented foods. Basically, they were foods that were created in a lab setting that would kind of be able to add certain nutrients to other foods. How does this work?
Like nastoi khvoi, which is a pine needle extract that delivered a lot of vitamin C. For extra protein, there was a yeast extract known as belkovye droji, which worked. It did add...
Why is he hitting the pronunciation so hard? Why is he that good at it? I'm starting to doubt this man's loyalties. It's suspicious when you're that good at it. It's suspicious.
Protein, but it also added a really bitter taste
I'm
to
noticing.
whatever it went into, so it
I'm
kind of
noticing.
ruined your soup or whatever.
I'd practice for a video too.
You know.
Yeah, likely and convenient story that you can tell the FBI agents right after I send them to your house.
Need the protein. Now these were foods that were created in a laboratory and kind of put on the people by the government. But individual people also had to come up with new food ideas, or old food ideas. One thing that they looked to was the gulag. Now, those
I've
who
heard
found
about this
themselves
thing.
in these horrific prisons were prone to starvation even when the country wasn't at war. And so the prisoners, or whoever was running...
They treat prisoners badly in the gulag?
The gulag often had to come up with dishes that used but the meagerest of ingredients. And one of these was a sort of stew called balanda, which a former inmate
Is that
described
literally
as
bland?
soup made of flounder, which comes straight from the barrel and is boiled
Oh.
up, guts and all, with salt. Then red cabbage is added in, and you have your gruel.
Oh.
It's unbelievably bitter. You wouldn't be able to eat it, but we did, because there was nothing else. And so this soup that was once relegated to the gulags of Russia
What a way to put
was
it.
now being served on the tables of Russia.
Oh my
to
God.
The average person.
Times are
And
truly
it was usually
dire.
made with
Grim.
leftover ingredients that you really should probably toss away, like horse bone or herring tail, things like that. Then it would be thickened with milk.
Would you eat gulag slop? I don't know, Chatty. If it's the last meal you got on planet Earth, are you eating gulag slop or are you saying goodnight? Press 1 for gulag slop. Press 2 for goodnight.
Most often, which is what we're using today, or rusks that are broken up. And rusks are like hardtack. Another food with very little nutritional value was something called shroti.
What?
And this was when they would take either linseed or some other seed like hemp seed, and they would make oil out of it. And then the hulls that were left, which would usually be tossed or given to animals as fodder, were made into cakes and cooked. And this is what they would eat in the very, very worst of times, like in Leningrad. In September of 1941, the German army advanced from the south, while the Finnish army invaded from the north to almost encircle the city of Leningrad, a city of nearly 3 million people. They blockaded the city and lay siege for 872
But Chatty, that's so mean. That's so mean.
days. There was one route in and out of the city via Lake Ladoga, a route that would become known as the Road of Life. Now, eventually, many people would be evacuated out on this road.
Watching war documentaries with Lucy Pyer, going through the entire history of the United States, starting with the Independence War, then the Civil War, then World War I, then World War II, then doing the Vietnam War, South Korea War, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And every time something bad happened, she's like, but that's so mean. Why were they so mean?
Food would be brought in. But it wasn't an option in that first winter. So by November of that first year, the ration for workers had dropped to only 250 grams of bread, and for dependents and children, 150 grams. That's like 3 slices of bread a day. And since this was a city and the war had just begun, nobody had planted any victory gardens and there was no farmland. And so, as the Leningrad food commissioner, Dmitry Pavlov, said, the sole means of receiving food was through the ration card. This, of course, led to...
What if you lost it? Imagine waking up one day and, like, losing your keys, you lost your ration card. What do you do? What do you even do in that situation? Is it ogre? Are you cooked? Are you finished? You are cooked, you die, you starve, you die, kill! Kill someone and get theirs? Whoa, somebody's dying anyway then. You tank death, you accept fate. Damn, it's fucking over, bro. Yeah, I don't understand, guys. Why can't everybody just get along? Oh, wait, because one side believes redacted and then the other side believes not redacted? Oh, but surely a conversation. It just like talk about it. Like, have they tried talking?
Counterfeiting ration cards and the theft of ration cards, as well as just a black market.
Have you tried talking out your differences?
The population, they relied on what was known as the line. These were lines that stretched outside of bakeries and shops that were giving out the rationed food. In their diaries, many people likened them to snakes or tapeworms wending their ways through the streets. And the first thing you did when you woke up in the morning was you got in line. We're gripped by one all-consuming passion.
The worst fucking amusement park line you'll ever be in your whole life.
They hardly uttered a word. With manic impatience, they stared ahead over the next man's shoulder at the bread. An old woman waiting for bread slowly slides to the ground.
Sorry, that's insensitive.
No one cares. She is dead, or she will be trampled nevertheless. Those waiting tilt their heads to see if her ration card has fallen on the ground. Perhaps it is still tightly clutched in her bony hand.
Would they take it from them?
What's worse is that for many of these people waiting, there would be no bread at the end of the line. Because by 10 or 11 in the morning, the shop would be empty. People would try to cope.
Chatty, I came for pumpkin soup, and what I got was the worst shit you've ever heard in your life.
Other people out of line, telling them that another bakery or shop had just gotten a fresh delivery and they should go into that line. Or they would fake air raid sirens to try to get people to scatter for cover. Many people were reduced to eating clover and wallpaper paste, pine needles,
What does wallpaper
rats,
paste taste like?
animals out on the streets, or others who had already died. And when a family member died, they would often try to keep it hidden because then they could use their ration card for at least a couple more days. That is how the majority
It's like that one, the thinking meme. Very smart.
of the population in Leningrad had to survive. But there were those who were more fortunate or less scrupulous. One girl in her diary recalled, "I didn't go hungry. My father works in Leningrad
What the
supply.
hecky?
During the blockade, we ate better than before the war. We had everything." At the party headquarters at Smolny in Leningrad,
Grim.
it was said that
Extremely
they were
grim.
eating cake while the people outside were starving. Very French Revolution-like. Yes,
them eat
only
cake.
under the Bolsheviks, only under Soviet power is it possible to have such rest under the conditions of war, of a prolonged siege of a city. What could be better? We eat, drink, stroll about, sleep, or we simply have nothing to do. While at the same exact time, just outside the doors, 2,000 to 3,000 people every day were dying of starvation. Now, Leningrad is an outlier. It really is the worst situation for the
I understand why the French did what they did, Chatty. I get it. It's time for Lucy Pyre to get radicalized.
Soviet people, for the home front at least. But the rest of the country was going through periods of famine throughout the war, especially because in the early
Radical
40s, pretty much
Lucy.
every harvest was below average, even considering that they had lost half of their harvesting lands. So most people were dependent on the foods that they were growing themselves, things like potatoes,
Potato!
beets, and pumpkins, like the ones that
Dude, potatoes would hit like crack in that time. Are you joking? You're either eating nothing or like potato, like pumpkin slop soup. Like a good potato with like a little bit of salt. Just like a little bit of salt would fucking be so good.
we are using in the kasha, which should be about ready. So once the kasha has
Okay,
baked
guys,
for
it's
25
ready.
minutes, remove the pot from the oven and dish it up. And here we are, millet and pumpkin kasha from
Well,
the Soviet home front. It's actually a really pretty color.
after
I mean,
everything
it's
I've seen, it's
vibrantly colored. I was not expecting that.
good.
Let me get a little bit of everything on here.
I
You
think.
definitely smell the pumpkin. That is the smell you're getting. I don't really know what millet smells like.
Doesn't
Oh my
look
gosh.
bad.
Here we go.
It looks very dry.
That's actually pretty good. I mean, I would add more
Dude,
like
this was-
sugar or something like that, but
This was
the
peak
pumpkin
eating.
is sweet, and so you do get
This
the
was like for
flavor of the
Christmas.
pumpkin. That is what kind of shines through. But
Russia
then you
definitely
get
has
this other
Christmas.
flavor, which I'm guessing is the millet, that is a little bit more earthy, and I don't know. I kind of like it. It
You trust the
reminds me a
KGB
lot of, like,
agent? Again, I feel like I've said this about this guy before when we watched his other videos. His eyes genuinely scare me. So learning that he's a KGB agent would be the least surprising thing because as we've established, like Russians have a really hard time taking photos where they don't look scary as fuck. So this guy kind of looking scary in every freeze frame also checks out.
couscous, the flavor of couscous, and the look a little bit, but like the flavor of couscous, but pumpkin flavored. Also, the great thing about this is I can tell it is going to be very, very filling. I made a big bowl. There's no way I'm going to be able to eat all of this in one sitting. Think more like oatmeal. How much oatmeal you could have in a bowl?
Oatmeal
Not
peak.
that much. That's how much you would want.
To be honest, it kind of looks Russian. Are we genuinely doing the Red Scare right now?
Rationed. Also, if you do want it a little bit richer, you can go ahead and add some butter because there is a Russian saying that says you can't spoil kasha with butter. And frankly, I don't
He's
think
wearing
you can
red.
spoil anything with butter, but so you can add more
I'm
butter on
noticing
top of this
the
or
dots are
during the cooking
connecting.
process. There are even some recipes in the cookbook from today that mention adding butter at the end. So go ahead and add.
Stop exposing my comrade. Lamelda, was the gay sex like a thing in Russia before or post World War II? Out of curiosity. Thus, you're also red. It's Valentine's Day, thank you! That would be why! How would a katana swordsmaster fight with a longsword? Again, is this not like the most male-pilled shit you've ever seen in your life? Say thank you, Lucy! Thank you, Lucy, for choosing the male-pilled Valentine's Day fucking celebration.
これね、平で叩けるかもしれない。
So true.
平で叩いてこうやって。平で叩いてこうやって。僕らの感覚
Okay,
だと
okay, I'm learning. From our point of view, we would want the handguard in this direction.
This is probably the closest technique to our unique parry techniques in our Ryuha, Asayame Shinryu.
あ、なかなかいい。
I like this sword. Wait, that's a sickle, that's not a long sword. Can we watch Heated Rivalry now? No, I'll get copyright stricken. Otherwise, we totally would. We did learn enough about Russia from that video to watch it.
And welcome to Latsa's 6 Sensei. Hello, I'm host Shogo from Latsa's Shogo, and this is 6 Sensei.
I'm about to learn so much right now.
こちらですね。
わかんない。
I brought a longsword!
ロングソードです。
どう使っていいか
I
わかん
have
ない。
no clue how to use it.
全然ちょっと
The katana and the longsword are completely different. But everyone is asking your opinion.
どうお考えですかっていう実は意見が。Six Sensei is a Kobudo master with more than 40 years of experience in training with Japanese
And he got his
katana.
ass.
However, none of us have any experience with Western swords. But I thought it might be interesting to hand a longsword to Six Sensei, who doesn't know anything about it.
Most men
and
have
see
no
how
idea
you
how to
apply
use
it.
their longswords. Okay, well, first of all, why are you assuming most men have longswords? A short sword is perfectly big enough to deal a lot of damage, and you don't need to even know how to use a longsword if you don't want to. It's not required learning for men.
Use it. So today, Six Sensei, the 22nd headmaster of Kobudo Asayame Shinryu with 400 years of history, will try fighting with
Table of
longsword with
contents for a
zero
video?
experience and knowledge. I hope this video will be interesting for anyone training with
You know this
longswords
shit's
to
peak when
see
it's got
what
a table of
Katana master
contents.
would think of doing with a longsword. However, again, we have no experience with Hima and longswords, so if you are making any mistakes or have any misunderstandings, please let us know in the comments. By the way, tickets for a 3-day
It's over
training camp
then.
in Japan by Six Sensei and Lasas Shogo are now on sale. Check out our Patreon page for more information. So then, let's get started. After Six Sensei swung the longsword around in the dojo,
There you
for a
go,
while,
there's your
there was something he
subtitles.
wanted
Is
to
this an ad? Is this an ad? Chatty, is this an ad? Is this an ad? I don't think so.
say immediately.
これがちょっと自分に当たりそうだよね。邪魔な感じがするね。
ですよね。音がする。
Yeah, guys.
こう
How dare you assume that the video about the longsword and the katana is a fucking advertisement?
The handguard that stretches to the side is something that we are not used to. If you try to swing it like a katana, the handguard hits your head and shoulders. So Six Sensei has a question for any longsword trainees watching this video.
僕らの感覚だとこうするでしょ。
We would want the handguard in this direction. Chatty, any longsword masters in here who can tell me?
From our point of view, we would want the handguard to be stretching in the direction of the sharp edge. Why is it in this direction?
They want
And
their
how should we
longsword to
handle it correctly?
stretch.
Are we doing something wrong?
Isn't it
But there was
long
one
enough for
part
you
that he
already?
liked very much.
これはいいね。
あ、下のところでストッパーがついてるっていう。
Because the end of the hilt is slightly larger, you can throw thrust the sword forward and it stops in your hand. This is actually a technique you can do with the katana too. We'll make a video about that soon. Then let's have Tsukara-san join with a bokuto to see how you could fight against the katana. The various
Chatty, I need to go back in time and I need to take a master samurai and I need to take a master knight who's like loved by the king and I need to put them and I need to make them fight each other but not to the death, just like to the almost death. So I know who's truly the best.
obvious difference between a longsword and a katana is.
反りがないからね。反りを使えないです。
I'm not even being
For
engaged
example,
about it.
using the maki techniques we've introduced before is
This
very
was a TV
difficult
show.
without a
What?
curve. Other typical techniques like
There's
Hinashi
nothing new
or
under the
hitting
sun.
katana weight worked, but Six Sensei was constantly surprised by how long the sword could reach. However, when he tried half swording, we found a problem.
あ、これが。
Oh,
The handguard got caught in the opening of the kimono. There are various theories, but this
No
could be
way.
another reason why the tsuba handguards of Japanese katana are round. But because the tsuba is round, it doesn't do as much guarding as a
I never
longsword.
thought
ただ
about
受け
this.
るのには安定するね。ガンとこう。これ絶対安定する。
刀のつばより全然安定しますね
全然安。定するね。
うーん。
Oh, so you're telling me the longsword is
You
more
could do something
defensive?
similar with the katana, but it wouldn't be so stable.
I used my brain, I think I
After
could have
trying
figured that out,
various
I
techniques with the
think.
longsword, there was something that Six Sensei realized.
これでさ、こう使うと反りがないけど、こう使えば使えるのかな。こう平でこうペン。
right?
うーん。
そう一電流のような作用ができる。
If you flip the sword and use the Y side of the blade, you can parry the opponent's sword. This is probably the closest technique to our unique parry techniques in our Ryuha, Asayame Shitenryu.
Oh my god, that's why you can parry in Dark Souls.
Then, if this is possible, Sensei thought up another technique you might be able to use.
これね、
Wait, so if you can parry with a sword, why do they force you to have a shield sometimes?
平で叩けるかもしれない。平で叩いてこうやって。平で叩いてこうやって。日本刀だったら刃でやるのね。刃でやってこっちへこう返すんですよ。これ平でね、平で叩いてこうやる。ほら。ほら。
That's literally the KCD parry.
勝手にそれてくる。
That is a name?
勝手にそれてくる。
If you try to use this technique from the Jodan upper stance, you must make some adjustments.
こうなっちゃうけどね。こうなっちゃうけどね。だから引いて使おうかな俺が。そうすると突きになるから。こう。
I like how training with swords is basically just showing you how fast you would die if you did one thing. He's destroying and mogging this guy, by the way. Me when I longsword mog you, even though I've never held a longsword in my life.
あ、なかなかいい。
He likes it, bro. He's gonna quit being a katana user.
なかなかいい。
ああ、いい発見ですね。
Thanks to Sensei realizing this technique, he started to like the longsword very much. Then from here, Tsukara-san will hold the longsword instead to see how Sensei will fight against it with a katana.
Okay, okay, okay. Lock in, lock in, lock in. This is the big shit. Oh. Oh. Oh.
After trying out a variety of techniques,
this work?
there was something that Sensei realized.
そっか、これね、真ん中にしのぎ立ってっからだ。案外とそれちゃう。
What is a shinogi?
ああ、なるほど。
だからこう当てがう。そうするとほら。
手でもスパンって言ってしまうんですね。
でこう当てがうとこう当てる。
Shinogi is a word that refers to the ridges on the blade. Because the shinogi of the longsword is in the middle of the blade, there are
なるほど。
two sides where the blade could get parried away, which is much more easily parried than a katana if you use our Asami Shenryu techniques.
合わせない方がいいけんだね。だからこうやっといてブンブンくる。ね、合力でブンブンくるっていうのがいいかもしれない。合わせるとやりやすいね。
He's gonna start swinging.
This was the biggest
And
and,
then I started
most
swinging.
interesting finding we had this day. In traditional Japanese kenjutsu, effectively using the shinogi to block, parry, and attack is very important.
Chatty,
So that's it for today. Thank you very much for
I need it. I need to get a VTuber to learn how to use a longsword. And then I'll get my super special $1 billion Japanese katana. And then I'll learn the katana. And then we'll fight each other to the death. Live. Like in 3D. In 3D with body tracking and everything. Swords are fun, but if you tried a really big axe, okay, shut the fuck up. I'm not gonna use an axe. First of all, I wouldn't even be able to lift it. By the way, why the hell did somebody submit this video? What is the concept here? I'm intrigued based on the title. 7,000 gay men in your fridge.
You open up your fridge and there are 7,000 gay men inside being
Whoa.
gay. This is what you should do. Now, first thing first, close the fridge because you've never seen 7,000 gay men being gay before and it's a lot to take in. So go and sit down with a nice cup of tea and put something on the TV to take your mind off the 7,000 gay men being gay inside
He's thinking
your
about the
fridge.
gay men.
Something nice and light, like the Antiques Roadshow, would be ideal. You can now relax and get lost in the world of antiques while the 7,000 gay
Wait,
men
you're turning
finish being
gay!
gay inside your fridge. Try your best to ignore the sounds coming from the fridge. I know it's difficult because it sounds just like a scene from 300, but turn up Antiques Roadshow to drown it out. I'm not going to lie, you may have to watch a few episodes of Antiques Roadshow because these geezers
He's
have
really trying to
serious
turn you gay.
stamina. Eventually, 7 hours will pass, the noise will die down, and when it does, you want to knock on the fridge and say, "Excuse me, 7,000 gay men inside my fridge.
Is this British
What are you doing
politeness?
inside my fridge? Being gay." I suppose that makes sense. Could you all please clean up after yourselves after you finish because I've got a lasagna in there and I really don't want it ruined.
That's full of
Trust me,
cum.
mate, you ain't going to want to eat that lasagna anymore. My nan made that lasagna. The thing is, yeah, I wouldn't mind 7,000 gay men being inside my fridge being gay if they were respectful, but no! They come inside my fridge and ruin my lasagna!
This is what the homophobe is scared of. He's scared of 7,000 gay men in his fridge ruining his fucking lasagna. This is a valid fear to have. We've all been there, man. Just chilling one day, then you open the fridge to get your Diet Dr. Pepper, and there's fucking 7,000 gay men in there fucking and coming in your lasagna. God, I fucking hate when that happens. What the hell? This video only has 2,000 views. I was here before he blew up. I was here before this shit blew up, just so you know. Just so you know. Okay, Chatty, what's the most male-coded video for us to watch? We got time for one more, okay? Batman gets doxxed on Twitter. Goku versus 20 Dragon Ball villains. Rating every fishing minigame. Metal Gear Solid Delta 12 biggest changes. TIE Fighter. Or the 13 dinosaur myths you still believe. I'm just, Goku, dinos, TIE Fighter, Batman, dinosaur, I'm seeing mostly Batman. I'm seeing dinos and I'm seeing Batman. Okay. I'm gonna choose dinosaurs because that video is longer, okay?
Nice arms, loser. I may have spoken too
That's so
soon.
sick. This
Turns
animation
out
is sick.
Almost everything you think you know about dinosaurs is wrong.
Many
Everybody
such
loves
cases.
to joke about how T-Rex had weak, puny
This
arms.
is such a cute little
But
dino.
what we found is that these things were ridiculously ripped. Sure, they were only 3 feet
anyone
long,
surprised by
roughly
that?
the size of your arm, but they were still packed with enough muscle to curl over 400 pounds. So obviously, these Samsolic-looking arms weren't useless.
I'm
But that's just
uncomfortable
one
when
of
I
the many
see
dinosaur lies
nipple
you probably
through
still believe.
tank top.
And in this video, I'm going to go over 13 of the biggest. And this next one is one you've probably fallen
I
for.
am become
You ever
uncomfortable.
go on TikTok and see something about how Spinosaurus sounded like this? So that's not how they sounded at all, actually. Because that's just
How
a
would we
loom
even
call
know?
slowed down. In fact, every single dinosaur noise you hear is total BS. Truth is, we have no idea what most dinosaurs sounded like.
Exactly.
Except one, Parasaurolophus.
Wait, why would we know that?
You see that giant crest sticking out of its skull? Well, it was filled with tubes and airways. So scientists 3D modeled it, pushed air through it, and it sounded like this.
Hell nah. Hell nah. Hell nah. Hell nah. God, please don't bring back the dinosaurs.
Oh, yeah, we're 99% sure this dinosaur sounded like an air horn. Pretty cool nonetheless. Then again, that's not the only lie you've been told by media.
It won't see us if we don't move.
Yeah,
He wanted
just
you to die.
totally
He wanted
wrong,
to kill
too.
those children.
T-Rex had the biggest eyes of any land predator. And I know size isn't everything. At least, that's what I tell myself. Though for T-Rex,
Stop it. Stop it. Stop it. Long sword, short sword, rapier, dagger. It's okay. Be who you are.
it did actually make a difference. Its vision was estimated to be up to 13 times sharper than yours, with forward-facing eyes and incredible depth perception.
Pocket knife,
If you were in
needle,
front of it, even from miles away, it was
thumbtack, doesn't
going to
matter.
see you. But the real question is, what would you see if you were looking back? Because when most people picture a dinosaur, they think of something scaly like a crocodile.
I also think of
Except
this.
crocodiles aren't even that closely related. Their actual
That's
closest
fucked.
relatives are birds. Because dinosaurs never really went extinct. Only the ones that couldn't fly did.
You can really see the relationship between the T-Rex and birds when you see the way a chicken behaves. If that thing had the power to kill and to hurt people, it would. And it tries really hard every single day. Chickens are evil.
So, get that. myth
Slotho,
out of here.
welcome.
In weird fact, but that does technically mean that birds are reptiles. So then, if all birds are dinosaurs, does that mean
You're
all
learning a lot this
dinosaurs
stream,
look
yeah,
like
me too.
birds? No. Birds evolved from theropods, but that's just one of
What's a
3
theropod?
branches on the dinosaur family tree. Which means while some dinosaurs
didn't even
definitely
explain
look like
that.
birds, which we could see preserved in fossils and even trapped in amber,
Oh,
we also know
yeah.
others look totally different. Sauropods probably didn't have feathers.
What is that?
T-Rex had scales over most, if not all of its body.
Okay, so that one's
But
accurate,
it
right?
gets even weirder. Some species, like ceratopsians, had quill-like structures on their tails.
It's a porcupine.
So the whole feathers versus scales debate, just throw it out the window. But you know what wouldn't fit through a window? A dinosaur. Because they're all massive, right? Not
No,
exactly.
they have the little
The
tiny
smallest
ones, little
dinosaur we've ever
babies.
found is a bee hummingbird.
They're
which is
called.
like
They
2
call.
inches
They start with a
long.
C. I know
Though
it. I know
if
it.
we're
It's not
talking
cunt. It's
non-avian,
co-
you
core.
got stuff like Microraptor,
Comp.
about the size of a crow and barely a
something.
couple pounds. We got really lucky with Microraptor
Compy!
too. It lived in the perfect environment to fossilize. And some are so well preserved,
Chihuahua.
we even know its feathers were black And if the light hit it just right,
Chihuahua.
they'd shimmer blue and green.
Oh, that's
And
so
this thing
pretty.
lived over 100 million years ago. But here's the thing. Most dinosaurs didn't live in conditions like that. Now, say you've got some pinky-sized bone from some tiny dinosaur, and an 8-foot femur from an Argentinosaurus. Which one's more likely to survive 70 million years underground? Exactly. That's preservation bias. Big bones fossilize better, so we
That
find
is
them more. But that
huge.
also means we're probably underestimating how many small dinosaurs there really were. And considering we've probably found less than 1% of all dinosaur species, who knows what else is still out there. Even so,
That's average. Why are you saying that that's average? It's 8 feet long. Am I to imagine that yours is 12 feet long?
dinosaur fossils are a lot less rare than most people think, as long as you're in the right place. This is the Hell Creek Formation, and if you know what you're looking for, you can literally
Oh my
walk
God, lots
for a
of
few
claws.
minutes and find a fossil. How complete they are, that's a different story. When your average dinosaur dies, it probably gets scavenged, so finding one that didn't get eaten, but also got perfectly buried, and then stayed intact while the Earth shifted for millions of years, that's the miracle part. And something you might not realize is even with the dinosaur fossils we do have, they're embarrassingly incomplete. I mean, for God's
What?
sake,
Some
I
of them
made
are
an entire
complete?
video about the life of Quetzalcoatlus,
Some.
and all we have is a single arm bone. If
I
you were
thought that
listening
was
closely
like
there,
a god
I just
from the
made the
Mayans.
cardinal sin of paleontology, thinking every prehistoric animal was a dinosaur. However, a lot of those animals weren't dinosaurs at all. Let's start with the ocean. Ichthyosaurs, plesiosaurs, mosasaurs. Not dinosaurs. They're part of
Okay, I hate the ocean so fucking much. I sincerely hate every single dinosaur that was in the ocean around the time that the dinosaurs still existed. I don't think you should have been in there. You don't belong there. You are evil. Congratulations on the extinction.
their own weird aquatic branches on the reptilian family
Why
tree.
though? They look
Same
cool.
with the ones in the sky.
Just because you look cool doesn't mean you're allowed the aura farm by terrorizing me and every single breath that I take.
You've probably heard of the word pterodactyl, but that's actually not
That
the
thing
right
looks
name.
so stupid.
That's just one
It looks
species
so
of a much
stupid.
bigger group called
That's a
pterosaurs,
seagull.
and they were flying reptiles, not dinosaurs.
You just said they're not
Speaking of
dinosaurs. They're
animals that aren't
dinosaur-like.
dinosaurs,
Like
let's talk
Souls-like.
mammals. You always hear that
For
mammals
animals.
back then were small, helpless, and lived in holes in the ground. But some of them actually ate the dinosaurs. This is Rapanomamus, a badger-sized mammal that we know for a fact had a taste for dino meat, because one fossil was found with a baby Psittacosaurus in its stomach.
Whoa.
And this wasn't just a one-time thing. In
Get
another
dino
fossil,
mogged.
it straight up mid-attack latched onto another Psittacosaurus's ribcage. So some mammals were already out here devouring dinosaurs long before we turned them into nuggets.
He was a baby eater? But that's so mean! Why would he do that? Why would he eat a baby? That's so mean!
But that doesn't mean dinosaurs were somehow losing.
It's just a
There's this idea
baby!
that mammals took over because dinosaurs were slow or outdated. That couldn't be more wrong. Dinosaurs were some of the most well-adapted animals to ever live, roaming the earth for over 165 million years.
Me when I'm so-called well-adapted to live, but I didn't adapt to the meteorite? LOL.
Nearly 3 times
Meteor
longer
mogged.
than mammals have.
You should take the word mogged away from me. I'm using it for everything and it's bad.
In fact, they were around so long that we live closer to T-Rex than T-Rex did to Stegosaurus. So, no, most of your favorite animals, sadly, wouldn't have met, unless they tripped over each other's fossils. And yes, dinosaurs were actually more advanced in a lot of ways, especially
I
their
love the
breathing.
long neck ones so
While
much.
mammals breathe in and out through the
Rod,
same
Hidden Blade,
lungs,
welcome.
dinosaurs and modern birds have a totally different setup.
Look
They
at my
have air
sack.
sacs spread throughout their bodies, which keeps fresh oxygen flowing through their lungs even while exhaling. In fact, dinosaurs' overspecialization may have been part of what led to their downfall, while our smaller, more adaptable generalist ancestors were able to cling on. And yet, despite all their advantages,
I love this
their
creature
entire
on the
existence
screen.
supposedly ended in a single afternoon. An asteroid hits Earth, and boom, dinosaurs gone. Well, we already know that's at least a little wrong, because, and even for the non-avian ones, they didn't vanish overnight. It might have taken decades,
They
maybe even
struggled.
thousands of years for the last of them to die out. Look at the mammoths of Wrangel Island. Most mammoths went extinct around 10 to 14,000 years ago.
And
But a
thank
small
God
group
for
survived
that.
in isolation until just 4,000 years ago. Around the same
Thank
time,
fucking God the
pyramids were
woolly
being built.
mammoth died out, bro.
This same thing could have happened with a few dinosaur species, holding on in small pockets before eventually disappearing from genetic.
How related are woolly mammoths and like moose and elk from Canada because they feel related.
Collapse, bad luck, or another disaster. But what's even stranger is that despite how it
Not
sounds,
at all, it's over.
this wasn't even the worst extinction Earth's ever gone through. Not by a long
Mid
shot.
as fuck.
And there was one even earlier that made the asteroid look tame, and it nearly wiped out everything.
So once again, why did the dinosaurs let themselves get mogged by a petty little asteroid? Meanwhile, that's like beta shit in terms of Earth's history.
And if you want to learn about that, go watch this video. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, subscribe.
Chatty, humans are never gonna go extinct. We're never gonna go extinct, Chatty. We're never going extinct. It's not gonna happen, Chatty. It can't happen. It can't happen, Chatty. We're too strong. We're too good. We've advanced too far, too quickly. How could that happen? Not related, but moose are in fact megafauna. What is a what? It can't be a megafauna. Isn't that a VTuber that has existed since the Ice Age too? What? That's a plant. Fauna is a plant. How can it be related to a mammal? I learned a lot today, unironically. I learned about swords. I learned about Soviet Russia. You know, who put that on their bingo board? The binger board for the 2026 Valentine's Day, learning about Soviet Russia and pumpkin soup. And also, we learned about dinosaurs. And then also, I sang songs, and we yapped a lot, and I got a kudo board. Very based. Thank you guys for a very beautiful, lovely, wonderful, adorable, sweet, kind Valentine's. I appreciate it every single year. I'm looking forward to next year as well, because I shall never let you go. You are forever mine and stuck. You are under my thrall, my siren's thrall. I won't release you. Ever. You want it that way, tell you why. Ain't saying Lucy's toxic. Tell you why. Refresh your board before you read it later. People added more shit to it. And then that one guy is like, I'm so embarrassed. I'm sorry I said happy birthday, Lucy. I meant to say happy Valentine's. I was just trolling. He thought it was my birthday. He thought it was my birthday, Jenny. He thought I was born on February 14th. It is so fucking over for me. It is so fucking over for me. Anyway, Chatty, happy Valentine's Day. Whatever you do with the rest of your day, think of me. Riz, treat yourself to something sweet. Maybe have a nice drink. Maybe watch a cute, sweet, loving movie. Not an evil movie, a sweet and loving movie. And I will see you again, actually, probably tomorrow, because I have a sudden stream that we get to do tomorrow. Probably, most likely, 90% chance, odds of getting a short Lucy Pyre stream tomorrow. Let's fucking go. Date bayo. What time? Usual time. Usual time. Usual start time. I love you very much, Chatty. Happy Valentine's. Mwah! Thank you always and forever for all of the kindness you show me. And I will see you again soon.